In our last video, we discussed Wyatt, a contestant with top-notch survival skills. Although he did not win, he remains one of the most capable survivalists. Similarly, in this episode, we'll talk about Dub from Season 11, known as the fishing master of the American Wilderness Survival Series. He lasted 80 days, surpassing the average survival time of 73 days by the champions. Today, let's watch his entire competition journey. Dub has always loved nature and disliked the routine of a 9-to-5 job under someone else's control. He has only ever worked as a fly fishing guide, preferring a frugal lifestyle to maintain his freedom outdoors. Joining the Wilderness Survival Show, he aimed to win the prize money to continue his carefree lifestyle. Being single, he had few emotional ties to family, which boosted his confidence in competing for the championship. On the first day with his gear, he found a suitable slope for setting up camp. Before he could start building, he turned around and was shocked to see an animal on the grassland outside. It looked like a moose at first, but a closer look through his camera revealed it was a woodland caribou, a protected endangered species. Dub mimicked its call, and the animal turned around, observing him with its wise eyes, even coming a bit closer, illustrating why they are protected species. Dub had no time to focus on this. He chose to build his shelter on the slope, using the terrain to block some of the wind and collecting the abundant wood around. He first cleared a flat foundation, used willow branches for rope, and set up 2 pairs of tripods at either end with a log as the ridgepole. Then, he tied oak slats and stakes along the sides and covered them with a tarp, finishing with some branches for a basic shelter. He hoped it would suffice for half a month, but that night, a black bear came sniffing around. Dub could clearly hear its breathing. If the bear attacked, the shelter wouldn't stand a chance for 3 seconds. Fortunately, it just passed by. The next day, still shaken, Dub decided to upgrade his shelter, which would take time. Meanwhile, he crafted a fishing net. Considering the shallow river water, he didn't make it very large, and admittedly it looked a bit rough. Dub set the net in the river near his shelter, securing it with a stake in the muddy bank and attaching the net to a log. Once the shelter was somewhat fortified, he turned his attention to food. Currently surviving on mushrooms and berries, he knew he couldn't keep up physically for long. So, after setting up a homemade lure, he went down to the river to hand fish. While waiting, he noticed movement on the riverbank and crept closer out of curiosity, discovering a few wild ducks hiding there. Local laws allowed hunting them with a bow and arrow. Dub quickly prepared for a potential double shot but took too long to aim, startling them. He could have easily caught one at such close range, but his greed cost him both. 2 days into the competition, he still hadn't caught any fish, but whether the net held any was yet to be seen. When Dub walked to the river, he spotted a gray jay perched on the log holding the net. Known as camp robbers for their thieving nature, he thought perhaps a fish in the net had attracted the bird. Indeed, he found a fish floating belly up in the water. A big one, measuring 36 inches, nearly 90 centimeters. Dub declared to the camera that he wanted to compare sizes with Wyatt, the fish king of Season 10, to see who caught the bigger fish. With lessons learned from previous contestants, he knew that in this wild setting, protecting food from other animals was harder than obtaining it. The next day, Dub built a campfire by the river and set up a pot. Having been hungry for a week, he cooked a full pot of fish to satisfy his hunger. He ate as much as he could and planned to hide the rest. The plain boiled fish, quickly cooked to perfection, tasted exceptionally delicious due to his hunger. This temporarily solved his food problem. He was also finishing the construction of his shelter. He built a chimney with mud and dry grass, and applied mud around the back door close to the chimney to reduce the risk of fire. For insulation, Dub first laid a layer of spruce branches, then covered them with 5 inches of bracken fern. The tarp went on last. He rolled up the excess material on the sides, touching the ground around logs, and secured it with stakes to prevent loosening. Once he finished the door, his permanent shelter was complete, allowing him to focus entirely on gathering food. Dub's camp was near a lake where he had caught fish on the 13th day. Seeing fish activity in the lake early one morning, he went fishing with meat as bait. Perhaps the fish did not like cannibalism, as there was no movement for a long time. Just as he was about to give up, a fish chased the bait to the shore. Unfortunately, Dub pulled too soon and missed the opportunity. He then moved to the river to set up an automatic fishing device. He whittled 2 sticks to hook into each other and inserted a sturdy willow branch by the river. He connected the fishing line to the stick on the ground, which would disrupt the balance if a fish bit, causing the bent willow to spring up. After setting this up, he continued fishing nearby. After a long wait, there was a bite. Dub reeled in slowly until the fish neared the shore. After cleaning the fish he caught, the automatic device also reacted. The fishing line was tugged, breaking the balance and snapping the willow branch. Dub pulled another fish from the river. With no food left in the shelter, catching 2 fish was a relief and proved fishing was a viable way to obtain food. Dub needed to increase his reserves, as he knew ice would soon cover the river, preventing fishing until the ice reached 10 centimeters thick. This period is a food gap and often a time when many contestants consider quitting, so he planned to store more fish beforehand. Today the net was ineffective, catching only branches and weeds. He hoped for better luck with the 2 fishing rods. Soon the automatic device reacted again. Dub manually released the hooked sticks, eager to secure the fish. Unexpectedly, the fish was strong and nearly pulled him into the water. Fortunately, the reeling went smoothly and Dub caught a 36-inch fish. However, in his excitement, he forgot to stun the fish with a mallet. The fish, still in his hands, wriggled free and escaped back into the river. A rapid and surprising turn of events. Dub had no choice but to sigh heavily, releasing his frustration. Returning to the shelter, he accidentally broke his glasses. With a 500-degree myopia, he was nearly blind without them, so he had to repair them. Luckily, Dub was handy. He used umbrella cord to bind the broken frame and applied melted resin as glue. Once it set, he could wear them again. On the 24th day, a drizzle fell, making the cold and wet weather uninviting for outdoor activities. However, Dub still needed to check the fishing net routinely. There was no movement on the fishing rods by the shore, but the net did not disappoint. From a distance, Dub saw something in it. A fish turned belly up. This time he prepared a stick by the shore early and dragged the sizable fish ashore, weighing nearly 10 pounds. He remarked that catching 10 such fish would be equivalent to killing a large animal. Dub set up his camera by the riverbank, quickly realizing the fish he caught was a giant, over 1 meter long. Such a catch could easily feed a contestant for 4 to 5 days in the wilderness. Dub filleted and cut the fish into pieces, placing them on a smoking rack made of steel wire and branches above the chimney. He covered it with a thick layer of spruce branches to trap the smoke. With the recent catches, his confidence in winning the championship grew stronger. As long as he kept performing steadily, even if someone else bagged a moose, he felt he could compete. Speaking of moose, one showed up at dusk just as Dub was stepping out to fetch water for the night. A few steps outside, he spotted a several 100-pound moose across the lake. He mimicked its call, hoping to lure it closer, but the moose headed into the nearby woods without looking back. Dub quickly grabbed his bow and arrows and chased after it, but by the time he reached the other side of the lake, the moose had vanished into the forest. With nightfall approaching, he couldn't track or hunt it and had to return to his shelter, noting that the timing of the moose's appearance was too late. Had it been a few hours earlier, he was confident he could have hunted it. The next morning, Dub returned to the lake, calling out in hopes the moose hadn't strayed too far and would come back. After a long wait with no response, he reluctantly headed back to camp, planning to go fishing. Just then, he noticed a grouse flying past, landing on a tree behind his shelter. With his bow and arrows, Dub stealthily approached and shot the grouse in one clean hit. He hadn't found grouse nearby before, and this hunt excited him. After a month of eating fish, he was ready for a change. He plucked, gutted, and cleaned the grouse by the lake, then hurried back to cook it for lunch. He deliberately didn't wash off all the blood from the grouse, cooking it to ingest, as bird blood contains significant sodium levels, which help regulate body fluids and minerals, crucial for any wilderness survival contestant. While the grouse cooked, Dub retrieved an arrow that had fallen into the lake. Not wanting to step into the cold water, he tied a piece of umbrella cord to a stick and threw it precisely in front of the arrow, slowly hooking it to shore. He easily retrieved the broadhead arrow. Back at camp for only a few minutes, Dub heard wolves howling near the river. Bravely following the sounds, he saw several wolves across the river. They quickly noticed him watching. Wolves can swim, and the river was no barrier for them. But fortunately, they didn't approach Dub and retreated back into the woods. The grouse was ready by the time he returned, its aroma greeting him as he lifted the pot lid. Dub savored the tender and flavorful meat, praising its taste. Returning to his main task of fishing, each day he checked the net by the river. This morning, he found the water level had dropped significantly. A bad sign. As expected, the net by the shore caught nothing. Dub reset the 2 fishing rods and sat by the river, waiting quietly. Unexpectedly, a moose appeared on the opposite bank, too far for his bow and arrow, and too cold to consider swimming across. Watching the large moose, all Dub could do was follow it and hope it might swim over for an ambush. Hiding behind bushes, he mimicked the call of a female moose to lure it across. Perhaps his call wasn't convincing, as the moose just glanced back and continued on its way until out of sight. Dub felt helpless. The first moose appeared at the wrong time, the second at the wrong place. Given a chance, he was confident in his hunting skills. Holding stocks of fish and potentially moose, he wondered who else could stop him from winning the championship. With winter's heavy snowfall, the competition's difficulty increased. Dub set several snares in the forest to diversify his food sources. However, due to limited resources, there seemed to be no rabbits in his area, and his snares remained empty without any signs of grouse or rabbit tracks in the snow. Wandering through the forest, Dub finally spotted a frequently used beaver slide, the tracks fresh, indicating regular landings. Carrying a roll of wire, he planned to set a large snare at the water's exit. However, while installing a stake, he lost his balance and fell into the water, soaking himself halfway. With temperatures well below freezing, his wet body lost heat 25 times faster than dry. Dub quickly set up the beaver snare and headed back to camp to warm up. Possibly experiencing early hypothermia, he got lost in the woods, ending up back where he started. A real predicament. He hadn't brought his flint and couldn't start a fire on the spot. Fortunately, Dub remained calm and, after finding the river, safely made his way back to the shelter nearly 2 hours after falling in. Had he stayed wet much longer, he might have lost consciousness. The next morning, on day 37, Dub saw a cloud shaped like a fish head and felt optimistic about a big catch. Despite the river starting to freeze, with fish likely moving to warmer, deeper waters, he soon spotted another large fish in the net, a white Arctic char. Its fat content is 19 times higher than that of regular fish, making it a true calorie bomb. For Dub, who is lean, the fat was crucial for maintaining his weight in the wilderness. After cleaning the fish and hanging it outside his shelter, he checked 2 fishing lines. One had caught something. Dub reeled it in nervously but smoothly, securing another sizable fish. His recent bad luck seemed washed away with these 2 catches, bolstering his resolve to stay. Just as he thought the day was over, Dub appeared on camera with a 3rd fish. He had only gone to wash his knife by the river, but ended up catching another fish, surprised by the rapid bounty. For the next 10 days, he only needed to focus on staying warm. Waking up hungry in the middle of the night, Dub retrieved a fish head stored at the foot of his bed. He cut off some pieces, added water, and stewed it in the fireplace. Satisfied with his situation, he showed no signs of distress on camera. However, life always presented challenges, like his repeatedly broken glasses. This time they completely fell apart, but Dub, ever resourceful, used willow branches for frames, secured the lenses with pine resin, and tied the legs with wire, managing to keep wearing them. Soon, a new problem arose. Dub experienced sudden stomach discomfort, unsure if he had eaten something wrong. He suffered from vomiting, diarrhea, and weakness for 3 days, during which he stayed in his shelter except to check the net and fishing rods. By the 50th day, he recovered. During his illness, he cooked and ate all his stored reindeer moss and some charcoal, which likely absorbed toxins and helped him pull through. Today, the net was empty, and Dub felt the pressure of survival intensifying. Luckily, he still had some stored fish left. He cut a piece for breakfast, planning to rest afterward. However, Dub encountered something he dreaded: parasites in the fish meat. Unsure if his recent stomach discomfort was caused by parasites, he was hesitant to waste the food, but the discovery was a significant blow to his resolve. If he were infected, he knew he wouldn't last long. 3 days passed, and despite continuous snowfall and the river increasingly freezing over, the net surprisingly caught a large fish measuring 38 inches. Carefully rationed, this fish could feed Dub for 5 days. He cleaned it in the snow, ready to leave his bad luck behind, and stored it in his shelter like his other catches. However, Dub soon faced another issue. A mouse had been eating his stored fish and contaminating the storage area, including the largest and fattest fish. He had mistaken the dark spots for mud and not cleaned it properly before cooking, which caused his stomach issues. Dub could only save the uncontaminated tail, deciding to either wash or discard the rest depending on how things unfolded. The safe-to-eat portion of the fish could sustain him for another 7 days. He estimated needing at least another half-month of endurance to win, so he needed to address the food shortage soon. The next day, the ice on the river thickened, making it difficult to retrieve the net. Dub decided not to risk it. By the 60th day, the ice on the lake outside his shelter had formed quickly due to the calm water, allowing him to start his ice fishing plans. Fish should be in the warmer, deeper parts of the water, but whether due to poor location choice or the extreme cold, he caught nothing after an afternoon of waiting. Dub washed the mouse-contaminated fish and cooked it longer than usual as his next meal. Despite his aversion, the cooked fish looked appetizing. Desperate for the $500,000 prize, he forced himself to eat it to maintain his mortgage and outdoor lifestyle. Making some sacrifices seemed worthwhile in light of these goals. The following day, Dub made a new net with the remaining umbrella rope, as rudimentary as the previous one. He set it up in the lake, securing it with branches tied to the ends of a trunk, allowing the net to be easily checked by lifting it from the water. He also drilled a hole in the ice nearby and continued to wait for a catch. The lack of resources in the lake made winning increasingly unlikely, leaving Dub disheartened. To pass the time at night, he made a guitar and began to play, becoming emotional as he reflected on the hardships and the harsh realities he faced, unable to hold back tears. Fortunately, things didn't worsen. The ice on the river finally thickened to 10 centimeters, strong enough to support walking. Dub immediately moved his ice fishing spot there, setting up 3 fishing spots in one go. After hours of waiting, he finally caught a fish, a 40-inch giant that could sustain him for an additional 5 days. Subsequently, checking the net and fishing rods became Dub's daily essential task. After waiting all night, the fishing rod delivered a fish to Dub. He cleaned and chopped it up, then hung it in a bag on a crooked tree near the camp. Dub then baited the hook with a large piece of meat, hoping to catch another big fish based on his experience that big bait catches big fish. As time ticked by, Dub patiently fished, eventually attracting a bite. The struggle suggested it was a large one, and indeed, he landed another big fish, extending his food supply by 2 days. By 2:40 p.m., the rod with the large bait twitched. It was like opening a mystery box, exactly the ice fishing result he was hoping for. A huge fish. This catch brought him back to a positive cycle. The desperate situation turned around quickly with these 2 fish increasing his food supply significantly. However, this method of storing food hadn't accounted for the cunning of pine martens. Excluding the fish he planned to eat that night, Dub stored the rest on the roof, thinking it would be easier to retrieve for a late-night snack. As expected, the lesson came quickly. The next morning, he found the ground covered with marten tracks, and the fish on the roof partially eaten. Thankfully, the marten wasn't very hungry, or it might have left just bones. Returning to the crooked tree, Dub was relieved to see the storage bag untouched. However, in just a short time as he returned to the front of the shelter, he saw drag marks in the snow. Martens were quicker than he anticipated. Angrily, Dub cursed. He couldn't afford to be negligent. He chopped the fish into pieces, bagged it, and hung it on the tree. On the 73rd day, he caught another fish, processed and bagged it in the usual way. The remaining time was spent chopping wood, making his days quite pleasant. Looking at his reflection in the camera, his beard had grown long enough to interfere with eating and drinking. Dub trimmed it with scissors and then decided to repair the door, which was nearly falling apart from daily use. He cut some spruce branches, laid them across the door, and secured them with some wooden sticks, effectively reinforcing it. By 5 p.m. it was dark, marking the start of nearly 20 hours of night, which Dub referred to as solitary confinement, highlighting the difficulty of nights for the contestants. Fortunately, with enough food, Dub could suppress the complaints in his mind and not think about quitting. Suddenly, he heard noises outside the shelter, likely an animal trying to steal the stored fish. He grabbed his bow and arrows and went out to check. Luckily, he found a pine marten on the crooked tree, possibly eyeing the fish. He was relieved the meat wasn't stolen, but puzzled by the loud noise, which seemed too big for a marten. Wondering if it was a passing black bear, he dismissed further suspicion since the fish was unharmed. On the 75th day, wrapped in his sleeping bag, Dub received a medical checkup notice from the show's crew. He hoped to see a family member, perhaps hidden in the helicopter, as he thought he might now be close to winning. He eagerly looked around during the checkup, but when the medical team left, no family appeared. Dub realized he had to continue his routine of chopping wood and enduring the cold. He was momentarily disheartened by the reality check, but vented his frustration and acknowledged he should not assume he had already won. He needed to return to his survival mindset: fishing, trapping, making fire, and chopping wood. No matter who else was still in the competition, likely missing their families, Dub felt he had an emotional advantage as a bachelor. He returned to the ice to continue fishing. This time, no fish bit, and he had gone several days without a catch. Initially, he wasn't worried, thinking he would win before running out of food. But now he felt the urgency, especially during the long nights. Dub needed to keep his spirits up with more determination. If he could catch a few more fish, he could stabilize his mindset for the remaining days of the competition. The river no longer seemed generous to Dub. No matter how long he waited, he couldn't catch any fish. His food stash was dwindling, with only a day's rations left. He desperately wanted to catch a fish to boost his morale, especially since he had never seen any signs of rabbits here and had encountered only one grouse. His only source of food was the fish. After enjoying his last meal from the pot, Dub cut off a piece of his belt. He had deliberately worn a belt colored similarly to trout, planning to use it as a lure. With its bright color, he was confident it would attract fish. The next day, he opened the door to find another 20 centimeters of fresh snow. Stepping out, his legs immediately felt unbearably cold, but he needed to fish on the icy surface to get food, pinning all his hopes on the makeshift lure. After nearly 2 hours of waiting, the lure didn't attract any fish, and the other fishing rods remained fishless as well. Dub realized he was in big trouble. The combination of anxiety and hunger made even breathing difficult. Unable to find any more food, and having consumed all his stored supplies amid worsening conditions, today marked the 80th day, the day he had anticipated his food would run out. Seeing no hope of victory and with his mental defenses nearly shattered, Dub pondered long and hard before finally making the call to withdraw from the competition.